Well, welcome everybody. I think it is afternoon where we are right now. This morning we were working on time zones, but welcome to the bridge. This is season 4, episode 7, and we're welcoming Marlene Motola to our bridge today. And welcome, Marlene. We'll get back to you with a little more introductions. And Sandy, have you got a quote for us?
Yes, I do. Hello, everyone. Good to see you. I hope you enjoy seeing us because we're enjoying doing this podcast. My quote for today is: some people visit my past more than I do. I don't live there anymore. I sold the whole building.
Wow.
Okay, okay.
Oh,
That can
that's
be good.
funny.
Yeah, that is a good one.
Yeah,
So,
start over.
Marlene and I have known each other for, I think, over 20 years. We met at a training, and she is a bright light. I mean, I remember that in class. She was just interesting, and I think she's an avid learner. And she's a nurse, but she's also an entrepreneur. She's very, very involved in her community. And anyway, welcome, Marlene. Why don't you
Thank
tell
you.
us a little bit about yourself?
Well, currently, as you can see, I don't dye my hair anymore. I don't need to because I retired as a nurse after 41 years of really enjoying being a nurse. I did a lot of I took care of preemies all the way to I was a director of a dementia unit and literally everything in between. So I got to do a lot of different kinds of things. And the one thing that I can remember and take from that is every human being is different, even if they're triplets. I mean, they're just absolutely different. And so when you try to, well, so I try not to be very judgmental. I mean, I really try hard. And when I see people being judged as a group, it really bothers me because I I'm so aware of how different and unique every human is. That's a pretty exciting part of my life. And
Yeah.
as an Airbnb super host for over 10 years, yay! Um,
Wow.
we we have people come into our house very frequently. Some friends say I should have a revolving door, which is pretty funny. But I get to take care of people in a different way now, and I really enjoy it. Uh, we've had cancer patients staying in town for treatment, so sometimes I get to be a nurse again. Anyway, it's just lovely. We've had people from all over the world, and it's just mind-boggling how unique and different people are. Anyway,
What a
I
good,
really go
I
ahead.
love it. That's such a capitalization of who you are. And I recall the couple of times that I did visit you at your house, you were always in the kitchen
Oh yeah.
cooking up something wonderful. And then, and you just are a marvelous person. And I love what
Um,
you just said about everybody is uniquely different and they have value. And being judgmental doesn't help anyone. Doesn't help me be when I'm judgmental, but people shut down when I judge them, even though I don't, I have to say anything. So that's
yeah.
fabulous. So tell me a little bit more about, 41 years of nursing, very diverse experiences. I have a hunch that that didn't happen by itself, the diversity and the going from different places. I mean, there must be some sort of, I don't know, curiosity or kind of entrepreneurship that is in you. Can you tell us more about that?
Uh, okay, going way back at 7 years old, I I heard the term interior design. I was with a friend that was in second grade, And her older sister was in high school trying to figure out what she wanted to do in life. And she was talking to her mom, and I overheard the term interior design. And I said to my friend, Estelle, and I said, "What are they talking about? That sounds really interesting." And she said, "Oh, my sister, Claire, she wants to be an interior designer." I said, "Well, what do they do?" And so she told me what she thought they did. And I said, "That's what I wanted to do. I just didn't know the name of it." You know, anyway, so I did get a degree in interior design, and
Cool.
I use it all the time. And I actually thought, I didn't realize you could do this in interior design. You could be a interior designer for hospitals or medical facilities. And I really tried hard to do that because I wanted to blend my passions. And I worked as an intern at this really, I don't know, really very cool and probably one of the most um, elite uh, architectural firms in Seattle. But I didn't get a job after that. I had to go back to nursing, so which was fine, not a problem. And I don't know. I feel like the environment really does create what happens with people. And as an interior design brain, I'm constantly moving furniture. I'm constantly, fixing the lighting or doing a color change or something. And it really makes a difference. Um, and um, I've been doing a lot of event planning with my temple. I'm treasurer of my sisterhood, but I also, do a lot of event planning. And so I come out with my measuring tape and measure all the spaces. And the rabbi says to me, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Trust me, you're going to love it." And anyway, it's just when you create an environment for people, they respond. And there's a saying, it's called, "If you build it, they will come." And I,
Right.
I have taught my children this because it really does work. I feel like I'm totally rambling, and I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but um,
No, you're doing a
I'm.
good job.
It's coming to
Yeah.
me this way, so that's the way it is.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I can, what I'm picturing is kind of your leadership blueprint is collecting, arranging, creating an environment where people feel safe and they can learn and they can heal. And it's because of the environment,
Absolutely,
but that's got to happen first. You got to build it. And you're
you got to
just
build
good
it.
at visualizing that and making it happen. And then your warm spirit invites people in. So I'm kind of overlaying it to who you are. Because my God, you
Yeah,
knew it at 7 years old. That is
7 years.
just
Yeah.
amazing. And you're still creating it to this day.
Oh yeah.
I'm just fascinated. I love I love the way you use that interior design metaphor to
Mhm.
describe your life. It's just marvelous.
Create it to happen.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting how young you can have a sense of what you want to be and what you want to do. So I became a early childhood educator, and I remember having my chairs or having things, my animals, all stuffed animals, all lined up, and I would pretend to be teaching them. And that had to have been at an early age too,
Yeah.
Marlene. And it just shows that you're created with a soul to know if you pause to figure it out.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, not knowing what the term was didn't stop me from wanting to do that. Um,
mhm.
Right.
and
But it sparked. There was a spark when you heard it. I love that. I mean, your
oh
spirit
yeah,
was going,
I
"Oh,
was like,
Mhm.
that's it. That's it. Yeah.
yeah,
And I feel
uh-huh,
sorry for children that don't have something come to them early in life. And it
yeah,
doesn't, what you want to do isn't necessarily obvious, and there's
Yeah.
plenty of kids that really don't have the exposures, maybe that they're not exposed to so many things that could help them figure
Could
out what
be.
that
Mhm.
career would be, or their passions are. But the ones that do get
But
it, it's pretty exciting. It's pretty exciting.
Yes.
My son's an electrical engineer, and boy, at 10 he was inventing things all crazy. He invented this pneumatic tube to go from Earth to the moon. It was
Wow.
awesome. I mean, it's just really awesome. And he's still an inventor. It's very cool.
Yeah.
well, Sue talks about noticing. Some of the people we've had on board on our podcast talking about noticing people, and I think when you can notice it in somebody else and you can call it out, maybe you're giving them clarity that they don't recognize themselves.
Mm.
And I think that's really cool. When I would go into the classroom and I'd watch how children were playing, we're talking about 3, 4, and 5 year olds. You could get a sense if you were noticing what they were drawn to, and you could have a conversation. See, I see that you are really liking building with blocks over here, and what kinds of things do you think you could do when you can start that conversation. You can help them notice what you notice, because sometimes we need somebody just to align themselves with us and say, hey, yeah, how about this? Do you like this kind of thing? And I wonder what kinds of things you could do with that.
Mm.
And I think sometimes you even need to do that with adults, Marlene, because there are people that are still not clear.
Mhm. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Calling.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say,
Oh, you
calling it
know me.
forth is so important. It was a real um, a marker to who you are because you found out what it was called. It resonated
Mm-hmm.
with you. There was a spark, and that you sometimes you have to play around with words to find that, but that is it's true. And then I love the
Mm-hmm.
fact that you know interior design. You're in creating an environment where people can thrive, and you do that everywhere you go, and it's so important, I'm
Where?
sure, with patients, to give them that creative environment. It doesn't have to be just that environment that facilitates their growth or their healing. Very important.
Yeah. I did take care of a man who was a quadriplegic at Harborview, and he was shot point blank in the neck. And so he was a very high level quadriplegic, having to use a
Mhm.
ventilator to breathe.
Mhm.
Um, and when he left the hospital, um, he needed help, so I took care of him for the first 2, 3 months because he really needed the help. And I got a little um, kind of a leave of absence okayed by my nursing
Mhm.
manager to do it because she knew how important it was for him to get settled in with his family. And he had 2 little kids.
Sure.
And anyway, but I ended up designing his independent living center, which was very fun. And,
Oh, wow.
taking the roll-in shower because he had to be on a gurney to get bathed, and it was very cool. It was very fun. And then he and his family decided to move to Spokane because his wife's family was there. And then another quadriplegic bought the place because it was so perfect for him.
Mhm.
That
That's
makes me
awesome.
very happy when that kind of stuff
Well, I,
happens.
well, I think it's really interesting how we can throw a stone in a pond and have the rippling effect. We don't know how far it's going to go out from that point of entrance, into the pond. But over and over again, you see how things grow and grow and grow into something even more beautiful than what started. Um, because your willingness, Marlene, to put your foot in the water and go for it.
Mhm.
I mean, you could have stood back and you knew you had the ability, but you could have stood back and said, my life's too busy, I've got this job, whatever. But because you you felt, I think you felt something in your heart that you wanted to do that,
Yeah.
and the rippling effect And who knows how many other people have also ended up buying the place because it was for something that they needed for their mobility issues.
Yeah, I'm seeing there's a courageous piece that you're willing to jump into unknowns and craft. You know what I mean? That's a really important leadership quality. And then you're also confident.
Right.
You're confident because you know what it's supposed to look like. You know, somehow you know.
Mhm.
And then you're putting it into action.
Well, and it's again too that if you love what you do, then it's never a job.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, I'm I'm going to say something because, before we became an Airbnb, we hosted international students because we didn't want to be empty nesters. Um, it
Right.
it was a little bit more random than that, but that's actually what was happening. Um, but we hosted 43 international students from, I think it was 12 countries, and over the space of almost 10 years. And one of our most favorite students, she would always say yes when we would like offer, well, let's go to a museum, or let's go to, the duck boat we did in Seattle, the duck boat, the amphibian boats. Anyway, some of the students, they would just fall asleep because they were just tired of learning and trying to translate everything. They just would nod off. But this young woman, who's now probably 32, um, she, uh, she said that she always says yes. And I'm like, what a great idea. Now, granted, you have to, if somebody picks you up off the street and says you want to go someplace, you're definitely not going to say yes to that if it's a stranger, right? That kind of thing. But no, she was like the most yes person. And she was 17 when she lives here, right? And I asked her one time, what did she want to do as she was growing up? What was her career path? And she said she wanted to work for the UN. And I was like, oh, wow, that is really a lofty idea. She's from South Korea. And anyway, long story short, we went to her wedding in Portugal, which was a couple years ago, come July. And she got married. I swear to the guy, the guy is so wealthy. He is like the Prince of Portugal. This was the most extravagant wedding I will ever have been to. And I mean, totally, totally unbelievable. I would say a couple of notches down from Princess Di, but seriously on that level. It was
Whoa.
really, really top notch. And anyway, I have to brag a little bit. About a year before they got married, she brought him to us, and they stayed for the weekend. I think it was Labor Day weekend or something. We took them to Mount Rainier and all that. Anyway, so just before they're leaving, she says, "So, what do you think?" And I said, "Oh yeah, he's it. He's it for sure." And they're just adorable people. Anyway, getting back to the wedding, after the whole wedding was done, which was, trust me, unbelievable, I said, "So, what are you going to continue working?" Because obviously she would not have to work. And she says, "Oh, yeah, I already got my job at the UN." And I went, "What?" She was going to
For
start her
her.
job like in a couple months. They were going to give her a chance to get married and all that. And then I said,
Wow.
"Oh, so you're living in Portugal though now, right?" And she said, "Oh, yeah, no, it's a remote job. I can work anywhere I want." And I'm like, she is the kind of
Wow.
person where doors just always open because she always said yes. And I'm like,
I love
I
Right.
just,
I
I
love
learned
that.
from I learned that from other people. And far younger than me, right? And I just love
That
that exposure.
that's
But yeah,
wonderful.
and she was not, I mean, she was very creative, beautiful, of course, but absolutely amazing in her
Wow.
talent.
That's
Right.
a
I think I was a good mom, but I have thought many times, Marlene, that I wish I would have said yes more. It's a messy project, but yes, we can do
I
that. Or, setting the parameters and having them work within that framework, but being able to say yes.
mhm,
Okay, so this is what I feel comfortable with, but yes, you can do this because
absolutely.
I wish I would have done more of that as a parent.
I'm glad to
So
hear
so
that.
Marlene, you noticed that in her and loved it, but I want to put that hat on you. How are you like that? How are you? Yes.
Well, I have a hard time saying no, that's for sure. um, um, yeah, I when people suggest that I do something, I kind of weigh it now because I have to protect my time. I feel like I'm always scattered going to do this and going to doing events, and I just spend a lot of my time um, giving, which I don't mind, of course. Obviously, it's very rewarding. However, I'm at the point now where I would like to just sit down and read a book. I don't get to read
Yeah.
very much, and it's very sad to me because that
Yeah.
is one of my passions. I just don't get to do it because it takes time.
Well, and I
Yeah,
want to put the
yeah.
yes in a kind of a leadership perspective because I see you. I mean, some of us have trouble saying no. I have that same disease. But
For
I
sure.
mean, somehow in your brain, when things come to you, you say yes and go explore. You know, it might be reading a certain book and learning a certain, certain something. But I have a feeling, I mean, you said yes when you learned the word interior design. So
Yeah.
your mind says yes. You're a constant learner. You just were talking earlier about learning QuickBooks, and you'd never done it before. And as
Yeah.
as you do that, your brain, you know how to learn. Doesn't matter what the task is or what
Mhm.
you want. You say yes and you go, and you can you can craft your time
And how can I
differently.
do it? How can I make it happen?
Yeah.
Yeah, and one of those things too, Marlene, that especially when you're retired, and I find that I've been talking about it. The only one who can make my schedule is myself, and so there's times that I have to learn to be able to say, yes, I want to do this, but can we do it next week? Or can we, in other words, you can still say the yes, but you can control where that yes lands as far as what works for you.
Great.
And yeah,
Yeah, I have my calendar pretty handy.
me
Yeah.
too.
Well, the other thing you can do with yes is kind of spread the spirit. Someone else
Mhm.
can have an idea and you can give them some yes thoughts about how they might explore it, kind of be a role model. And that's just as powerful, if not more powerful. Teaching somebody that it's all right to learn always.
So I
Hmm.
have a little story for in that regard, if that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
so, as I said, I'm treasurer of my sisterhood. So it's a group of women at our congregation, and they come in all sizes and all ages, right? And there's a couple of women who like to put on events, but they only like to do the cooking. And I said, okay, wait a minute. We're here because we enjoy all of these events, but we're not here just to tap your skills. We're here to develop your leadership. And so
Hmm.
part of this event planning requires, you put a poster together or you somehow promote it. And you got to stay within a budget kind of thing. As a treasurer, I definitely have to say that. Um, so I'm constantly telling people that this is a training ground for other,
Yeah.
other things in life and developing more skills. And a previous president of our sisterhood is now a city councilwoman, and
Wow.
she
Oh,
attributes it to the training ground that we provide. And
yeah.
so it's like we're growing people here. We're not just tapping your skills that you think you have, but we want you to expand and learn how to do more things. So
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's interesting, Marlene, because I think that some of our newer generation, I don't want to group them up, like you said. There's individuals, but they think they should start at the top. And boy, that's not the way it works. Starting from ground level and working your way up gives you so much more ability or foundational knowledge that you don't have when you try to start from the top. And I think that's really important, is to this new group coming in, this new age group that comes into our society, is you don't get to be the top of the heap. You've got to be able to learn the process and go through the learning stages of what will make you ready for being. And again, being a leader means that you also are humble in the approach that you take and are willing to listen and hear and learn continually.
so
Well,
my
and Sam,
my response to that is you don't learn how to walk without falling many, 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 many times. And so you can't start out walking. You have to learn how to crawl, and you have to learn how to stand up. And I mean, and those are just developmental stages that everyone has to go through.
yeah, you
Yep.
wouldn't have the
Yeah.
muscles to walk if you didn't fall down and get up, fall down and get up. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly,
And I
which
love,
is what all that training is required. I mean,
mhm.
go
And I
ahead.
like to say, that there is no bottom. Wherever you start is where you start. And um,
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember who said it, but some important person probably said, I loved every job I ever had, whether it was digging ditches. I enjoyed it and did it and then moved on. So the bottom is just where you're starting. And I
Yeah.
want to say to those ladies, and you probably already have, that love to cook, they need to go back to your medical analogy you used a little while ago. So you're good at cooking. So who are you going to mentor so that they can cook next year
Exactly.
when you're designing something else? That's such a good statement. Can you repeat that again? Because I don't think we were online when you talked about that. The medical, the
Are you talking about the training ground or about
yeah, yeah.
walking?
Well, you were at
Okay,
stages.
so
You were,
you can't. Was I frozen? I don't. Okay.
yeah, just for a
Um,
second.
you can't. You can't walk before you learn how to crawl. You can't crawl
Mhm.
before you learn how to sit. And that's just the way a human is developing. It's
Right.
developmental stages. And I
Absolutely.
think you said that you have to grow the muscles to learn how to
Mhm.
walk, and you have to stand
Right.
first. So
Yeah,
I
that's
think
perfect.
when someone thinks they can start at the top, you have to ask them if they've developed those muscles or whatever their
Mhm.
pre-training was like. So I think internships are the best thing ever.
Well, and I think that you know I've heard over and over, well, I don't like doing that job, or I don't. And I think that there is learning to do the hard work is important for every single one of us. So when I was a freshman in college, I was in a dorm that had 7 floors. And I don't know why they chose to do this. I think they were just trying to find it. I think they were just trying to find a job for me. But you know what my job was every single day, was going down. There was 7 flights of stairs on the fire escape, and I scrubbed those stairs every single day.
Wow.
And I know they were just trying to find something for me to do. And do you think it was fun? No. Do you think that I learned something out of it? Yes, that you have to do the hard work and that you have to show up.
Mhm.
And in that, there's things to learn. It helps again to get you ready for the next step.
Mhm.
Very, very true.
And
Next step,
Yeah,
literally.
literally, that's for sure.
and building that trust within your organization that you do show up every day. You know, the that you're consistent and that you're doing the best job you can. That's really important.
Yeah,
Um, you know, Marlene, the other thing I'm really noticing, I love it that you're telling these ladies that love to cook, you know, they need to move forward. Well, and I think I know this about you, you're a wonderful organizer. And that's a powerful skill. And within that is you facilitate, you know, you put everyone to work to facilitate that environment. You know, what I'm hearing from you that the environment is so important. I mean, it really is, not only for learning, but
yes.
you know, you're building the structure. So that's important. And you see it,
Hmm.
and then you know how to do the next step, which not
Visualize it.
everybody does.
Yeah,
You've
visualize
got
it. Sit and say,
a certain kind of
yeah.
vision that is pretty rare. Do you notice that what you do is rare?
No, but I do
You
notice that
don't.
nobody else moves furniture in hotel rooms like I do. I'm not kidding. There is not a hotel room I've been in that I didn't move furniture. It's very
Well,
weird. And
well,
Airbnbs
no.
that we go visit,
Yep.
I mean, well, it's so embarrassing. But at the same time, it's like, wait, why is this over here? This needs to be over.
No.
Anyway,
Well,
I
I
always
think
put
that.
it back the way it's supposed to be. But it, my
Well, that's
husband just
part.
laughs at me. There she goes again.
You
Anyway,
got a foundational gift that is pretty rare, and you need to. You know, it's not right until it's right. But facilitation of environment is a huge piece of learning and moving forward. So that is really. So I've got a kind of a detailed question for you.
okay.
When you go to a place, I mean, you said at one time that, you know, when you were going to decorate or, you know, fix things up, you got out your measuring tape. And so where do you start? Do you start with visioning nothing on the walls? Do you start with your tape? Where's your starting point with your,
Well,
you know?
this last we did a big event called Vashti's Banquet and Shook Market, and um, in order to fit all of the ideas into this one space, we had to measure it out to see if it would work, and also depended on how many people were going to come. So I I'm not. I had this vision because I knew what I wanted it to look like, but the I still go to Pinterest and Etsy, and I mean I do a lot of, I don't know if you call that research, but getting ideas, right? So some people go through magazines and look through ideas, and then probably I know that magazines kind of shows how old I am, but at the same time, you get
I remember.
ideas that way, right?
Mhm.
What did you say? I
Oh,
didn't hear you, Sue.
I'm at the same age. You know, we used to buy magazines and rip out
Okay.
pages. I know.
Yes. Yeah. And so you visualize what those things are looking like, right? And um in order for it to work, you have to measure the space, and there's only so much. For example, you have to have at least 6 feet between two round tables or two tables, so that when people get into their chairs and get back up to get out of their chairs, they're not going to run over somebody. So that, there's a lot of practicality to how you don't want people arguing with each other because they didn't have enough space. So
Oh, I love it.
there's a
I
lot of
love that.
practical to it.
Well, but it's foundational, and you learned that in interior design. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And grabbed onto it and you use it throughout your life. I mean, your whole life is a design book. You do design. You do human
Absolutely.
design.
Human
Yeah,
design
human
and
design.
vegetable design coming up here soon. I've got some plants going. I got to get my zucchini plants in. Um, but it's really fun to have vegetables and plants, gardens.
Mhm.
We've got a 3-level patio system for our guests and for us, of course. But it's really fun to have things like we have grapes growing now, and we have apple tree, and we have a fig tree, and so people feel like they're in a garden when they come to stay here. I want them to feel like they have access to a nice space. And one of our guests said it's a garden like an oasis, and I'm like, yeah,
Yeah,
thanks.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
It brings joy to you. It brings joy to you when you're bringing joy to other people's
Yeah,
lives. I
absolutely.
think that sharing. Yeah.
It's fun.
So, I think you talked about vision, and when you do your collections and research, um, do things pop out, and you say yes, or how do you know? Because I'm feeling it's kind of an intuitive thing.
Okay, I don't know if you call this a brag or just a weirdness, but when we're driving, if my husband is driving and we're going down the street, sometimes I'll see a house that just looks so pathetic, and instantly I see it change and how it could be.
I
It's
love
just,
it.
and I tell my husband, my brain is working on that house. Don't ask me why.
That's great. No,
And
I love it. So,
it's just
yeah,
weird, but it's the way it is. Some people they're just have skills in other areas, and I guess that's just the one I have. So I
that's
I
awesome.
use it
No,
as much as I can.
yeah, that's good.
Well, that goes back to that individuality that you were talking about, Marlene, that we are all unique in our own. I don't believe our creator made any of us to be cookie cutters. We all are supposed to be
Mhm.
who he made us to
Fully
be.
agree
That's
with
right.
that. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah. And when
and
you
I
look
know.
at plants, uh, plants are the same. They're all so unique. It's just
Oh yeah,
amazing to me. Ah, I
absolutely.
love
Yeah,
I love gardens. I'm going to go to a
artistry.
garden. Yes, I'm going to go
Yeah,
to a garden
yeah.
for Mother's Day. So it's
Oh, good,
really one
Good.
of my favorite
wonderful.
things to do.
Good, good. Well, and you notice things that other people don't notice, and that's fabulous.
Yeah, right.
And I know as I um, get a little older and wiser, I hope, um, I try to, I lean on my intuition more than I used to. You used to hold
Oh yeah,
back and not tell people what I saw, and I don't do that anymore because the worst they can do is not agree with me, or just,
right?
Right.
but I'm getting better at it. And when I work with younger leaders, that's what I tell them. Go with your gut. Your gut's telling you something. It's who you are. And what's the worst thing that could happen? So I
Right.
love your visioning, and not everybody is visual, and you have a powerful visual gift. And that is what it's plants that seed of creation, and then it grows into it because of your lovely garden, your rich soil. So
Yeah,
that's
the rich
marvelous.
soil. Very good.
Yeah.
We just got a bunch of bags of soil, so yeah. Oh
Rich,
boy.
smelly soil. Huh? Yeah. So
Yeah, it's gotta be
how about
smelly. Mm.
how what somebody new pops in your life at one of your events or just in your life? What advice might you give them um, to enhance their journey? What would you tell them besides to be a yes person?
Trust your gut for sure. I mean, I I really lean on my gut. And I don't know if I'm right all the time, but at the same time, I'd rather trust my gut than anything else because
Yeah.
Yeah.
it has
Yeah.
proven to be right.
There you
Um,
go. There.
yeah, it really
Well,
has.
that. Mm,
Yeah, because if it's not the right thing, then you can always adjust your this,
Yeah,
sail or whatever. You can, think about a boat, a sailboat. You have to adjust the sail to go where you want to go.
mhm,
We can do the same thing in our lives. Is you can go by your gut, but if you need to adjust, that's
mhm.
part of being a human.
absolutely.
Yeah, and you're modeling to other people that you can try something and it's not right and you adjust. I mean, it's that role model too that happens when you just do it. You just do it or you just say it and then see what happens. No, that's good. So,
That's,
anything.
to me, a, oh, I just wanted to say that that's the trial and error, of learning. You're going to fall a few times. It's just not, it doesn't happen
Right.
without few
It
failures
doesn't. No,
or lots of failures.
that's right. That's right. Um, so I lost my train of thought.
Oh,
We
okay.
usually, I'm sorry, it flew out the window. It'll fly back in sometime. Um, we usually kind of end our sessions with what's one takeaway from our conversation today. So, what might be your takeaway, Marlene?
Well, I promised myself that I would go measure the kitchen at our temple. This is so practical. Oh my goodness. Um,
Oh, I love it.
that once I was done with the next two events, which are now past, and I get my garden planted, that I promised myself that I would go measure the kitchen because that commercial kitchen has got to be the worst I've ever seen. So so the takeaway for me is okay, accept that you're going to do another kitchen,
I love it. You,
multiple
Uh-huh.
kitchens. Kitchens are, the kitchen is the heart of the home, and if it
it
doesn't
is.
work,
Hmm.
it really is bad
Right.
news. I mean, people
Yeah.
just are
Right.
unhappy. You can't cook a meal
Yeah.
in there, then you really don't have a life. It's
Right.
just, ugh, anyway.
Yeah. You are.
It's called practical application,
It's called what?
Marlene.
Yeah. But
Practical
Yes,
application.
practical. Very good.
but
Practical
you're,
application.
yeah,
You're taking
you're
it
an
forward.
architect and you're a builder,
That's
and
right.
you're the visioner. You got a vast toolkit. You really do, and you're a marvelous woman. I'm just thrilled that you came on with us. Sandy, what are you taking
Yes.
away from our conversation?
How important it is to have the spirit of yes. Good reminder.
Mhm.
It's easy, and I think especially when we're retired. I'm going to be 70 this summer. It's easy to kind of quit saying yes, and we've got to. I think as long as we have a breath in our body, we need to have the spirit of yes, that we are open to what God wants to give us.
Mhm. Yeah, that's
Excellent.
good. Yeah, I like your analogy of, I can't just set a baby down and expect them to walk unless they've built their muscles
Hmm.
up by falling down, standing up, falling down, standing up.
Right.
And that's
Right.
true for
Right.
us in every phase of our life. So if we stop learning, then we're going to stop building muscle and stop being strong. So I like that.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely. And
So
and
thank
to
you.
have people with you so that you can help them learn too. You know, it's
Hmm.
just
Support.
anyway. Yeah.
No, yeah. Yeah. Well, Marlene, you've been a pleasure. You're just a bright light in this world. I want you to know.
Yes.
And
I love your smile. Your face lights up.
yeah,
I
Absolutely.
and
I
she's
so
already.
appreciate you guys, but I feel like you've just been complimenting me so much. It's really embarrassing, but thank you.
Oh,
We don't say what we don't
take a
mean,
breath and
Marlene. We don't say what
accept it. We just say what we see. We say what we see, and you're marvelous, and you're a marvelous influence in the world. And we're thrilled to have you here, and we're hoping that you'll come back again and visit us
Well,
again.
thank you for the invitation. I appreciate that very much. And of course, I'm going to have to say yes.
Well, I hope you had fun. It's all
It's
about
always
fun, so
fun.
we hope you
And
enjoy yourself.
obviously, I've never done this before, so I had to say yes, right? There you go.
Yeah,
Right.
we're new to
You
this
said
Thank
yes.
too,
you.
so we're all in this together, and we're here to support each other. So, thanks
Thank
again.
you.
Okay,
All
I'm going to
right.
say goodbye to
We'll be in touch.
everybody and give us about 30 seconds, and then we're going to talk afterwards. Okay.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'm
All
ending.
right.
Bye bye, everybody.